In 1898, a young woman climbed into the ruins of Nemeton Monastery, drawn by a voice no one else could hear. Before the night was over, she would encounter thieves, a priest, tortured souls, and horrors buried beneath centuries of suffering. Yet the strangest thing waiting inside Nemeton wasn't some dark secret or a monster. It was the haunting question: why do some souls remain behind? This is Koudelka, and her descent into the dark history of the monastery was only just beginning. There is something unsettling about places that should have been forgotten, remaining long after the people who built them are gone, long after the prayers have faded, and long after anyone remembers why they existed at all. Nemeton is one of those places. A monastery abandoned to silence, a monument to lives that ended centuries ago. And yet, something still lingers within its walls. Koudelka can feel it, and perhaps that is why she seems strangely calm. Where most people would see a ruin, she sees something familiar. Another place where the dead have been left behind. The first person she encounters could not be more different. Edward Plunkett came searching for treasure, gold and relics, valuable things hidden beneath the dust that the dead no longer need. Soon they are joined by James O'Flaherty, a bishop and a man of faith who believes suffering has meaning and that death is part of a greater design. Perhaps he is right. Or perhaps places like Nemeton exist because meaning is simply something the living invent when faced with things they cannot accept. These three strangers, a medium, a thief, and a priest, now stand together, none of them truly understanding why they have been drawn here. As the three continue exploring the monastery, they begin uncovering the history of the place itself. Long before the voice brought Koudelka here, Nemeton already had a dark history of its own. Originally built as a monastery in the Welsh countryside, it was meant to be a place of worship removed from the noise of the world, where people came seeking faith. However, time has a way of changing the purpose of a place, and records found throughout the ruins reveal that Nemeton eventually served as a prison where political dissidents were isolated from the outside world. Some arriving with names, and others leaving only as memories. Even after those days were gone, the monastery remained empty and forgotten, slowly decaying beneath the Welsh rain. Yet stories never stopped surrounding its ruins. Most people dismissed the tales of strange voices, unexplained apparitions, and figures wandering abandoned corridors as the kind of legends old buildings naturally collect. But as Koudelka, Edward, and James descend deeper into Nemeton, those stories become increasingly difficult to ignore because the monastery is far from empty. Among the first spirits they encounter is Charlotte de Lota, the phantom of a young girl whose presence reveals that the tragedy tied to this place reaches far into the past. Born from a forbidden royal affair and hidden away in Nemeton to cover a scandal, Charlotte was executed on her 9th birthday. Her heart consumed by a deep hatred, fueled by the stolen letters of a mother she believed had abandoned her. Her lingering torment proves that the agony of Nemeton existed long before the current madness took root. This realization raises an unsettling question. If Nemeton was already haunted, then what kind of tragedy could have transformed it into something even worse? The answer to Nemeton's modern nightmare lies with a man named Patrick Hayworth. Following the brutal murder of his wife, Elaine, by a band of thieves in London, Patrick was consumed by a grief that slowly devolved into a dark, driving obsession. Desperate to undo what had happened, he searched for answers far beyond medicine, faith, or reason, a pursuit that eventually led him to steal the forbidden Emigre manuscript from the Vatican, an ancient text containing occult secrets capable of transcending death itself. Fleeing to the Welsh countryside, he bought the Nemeton estate from Ogden and Bessie Hartman, using his immense wealth to corrupt the couple into becoming his accomplices. Together, they turned the mansion into a horrific trap, drugging unsuspecting travellers and using them as human sacrifices to fuel Patrick's resurrection experiments in the dark. What Patrick hoped to accomplish remains clear, but what he actually unleashed went terribly wrong. The rituals did not erase death. Instead, they catastrophically twisted the boundaries of nature, transforming Nemeton into the epicenter of a growing supernatural nightmare. The restless spirits haunting its halls, the strange phenomena surrounding the estate, and the distant voice guiding Koudelka into the darkness all trace back to this single tragedy of a husband who could not accept loss. For the first time, the scattered pieces begin to form a coherent picture. The monastery was never the source of the curse, but merely the stage upon which it unfolded. And somewhere deep within those ruins, the voice that called Koudelka is still waiting to be found. For most of the journey, the voice remains a mystery, a distant whisper guiding Koudelka deeper into Nemeton, always present, yet never fully understood. Eventually, the truth emerges that the voice belonged to what remained of Elaine Hayworth. Patrick's ritual had not conquered death. Instead of returning Elaine to the world of the living, the catastrophic failure of the ritual separated her body and soul, trapping both in a nightmare neither could escape. While her flesh was twisted into a monstrous abomination, her soul remained imprisoned within the estate, unable to move on or rest. It was this lingering spirit that had called Koudelka to Nemeton from the very beginning, to end the suffering that Patrick had unleashed in her name. The tragedy becomes even more disturbing when viewed through Elaine herself. Unlike her husband, she never sought to return, and unlike Ogden and Bessie Hartman, she never demanded sacrifice. The countless deaths that stained the mansion were committed for her sake, but never by her choice. She became the involuntary center of a horror she neither wanted nor controlled, remaining a victim long after her murder. Perhaps that is what makes her story so tragic. Patrick believed he was acting out of pure love, yet every horrific step he took carried him further away from the woman he was trying to save. As the mansion filled with ghosts and the dead multiplied, Elaine remained trapped at the epicenter of it all, waiting for someone to finally do what Patrick never could. Let her go. In the end, Koudelka reaches the source of the tragedy that has haunted Nemeton for years, uncovering the voice that guided her into the monastery and the soul that could never find peace. What follows is far more than a battle against a monster. It is the final consequence of the grief, the sacrifices, and the obsession that claimed countless lives in pursuit of the impossible. Death was never the true horror of Nemeton, for death had already done its work. The horror began when Patrick tried to undo it. Patrick could not let Elaine go. Ogden and Bessie Hartman helped turn that grief into an atrocity, and an entire mansion became a monument to that refusal. The dead were never asking to return to the world of the living. They were simply asking to rest. This deep human core is precisely why the nightmare of Nemeton still resonates decades later. Beneath the ghosts, the rituals, and the horrors lurking within the walls, lies the universal pain of losing someone, and the dangerous temptation to believe that love means holding on forever. But some doors only lead deeper into darkness when we refuse to close them, and sometimes the kindest thing we can do is let go.